and slow from Northern Boulevard right on up into Bell Boulevard. Shadow tells us the New York State Thruway has a mile delay coming down to the Tappan Zee. Inbound at the Midtown Tunnel, you're looking at about a 5 to 10 minute delay. 59th Street Bridge.
Describe New York in one word.
Describe New York. Well, if I were to describe New York, I'd say one word. Exciting! Outrageous. New York City. We have good things, we have bad things.
One word. One word.
One word. One word. Fabulous.
Intense.
Confusion.
New York is crazy. I'm telling you, it is crazy. I love it here.
It's the best.
How do you describe New York? It's been serenaded in song, portrayed in print and on canvas, captured on celluloid and imprinted in the mind of anyone who's ever visited or dreamt of visiting the Big Apple. New York is a city like no other, a city of contrasts, of superlatives, the world center for business, finance, and the creative arts.
Deep down under everything, people are really good in New York, no matter how cold everyone says we are.
New Yorkers are a breed apart. They have a reputation for speaking loudly and being very self-assured. Or, as the song says, if I can make it here, I'll make it anywhere. A New Yorker's behavior should not necessarily be taken for rudeness. It's merely the result of living in a city where conditions are crowded, fast-paced, and tumultuous, where you have to speak loudly to be heard and walk briskly to get through the crowded streets.
It's not the calm life. It's 90 miles an hour zone, you know? And you want to relax sometimes. It's not a relaxing place.
New York is one of the world's largest cities, but even more, it's been called a state of mind. To those who live here, New York is the center of the universe. To the rest of the world, it's a small plot of land on the eastern coast of the United States, almost halfway between Boston and Washington, D.C. New York City is comprised of 5 boroughs, covering about 300 square miles with over 7 million residents. In area, the biggest borough is Queens, home to John F. Kennedy and LaGuardia airports, as well as the high-flying New York Mets at Shea Stadium. The northernmost borough is the Bronx, famous for its zoo, as well as the other great baseball team, the New York Yankees. Brooklyn is the most heavily populated borough with more than 2.25 million people. If independent, it would be the 4th largest city in the United States. Staten Island, the 4th borough, is more rural than the other boroughs. It's best known for its ferry ride, a 5-mile trip to Manhattan that costs a mere 50 cents, but is worth much more. But the borough that means New York to the rest of the world is Manhattan. While the 5 boroughs together comprise New York City, it's the island of Manhattan that we'll explore. It's a small island, little more than 13 miles long and 2 miles wide at its widest point. But it holds a preeminent place in the world of art, finance, business, media, architecture, fashion, design, and culinary arts. What we now call New York City was inhabited by indigenous tribes in 1609 when Henry Hudson, sailing for the Dutch East India Company, first navigated the river that now bears his name. The first Dutch settlers arrived in 1624 and established a settlement and trading post called New Amsterdam. In 1626, for the equivalent of $24 in goods, Peter Minuit bought Manhattan Island from the natives in the name of the Dutch West India Company. More than 100 years later, New York became the capital of New York State and the original capital of the United States of America. It was here in 1789 that George Washington took his first oath of office as president. Of course, the New York State Capitol was moved to Albany and the U.S. Capitol to Washington, D.C. But the stature of New York as a city continued to grow. From the mid-19th century through the early part of the 20th century, New York City welcomed immigrants by the thousands. After processing at Ellis Island, they entered New York society, changing it irrevocably as they created new lives for themselves and their descendants. To the Italians, Russians, Irish, Jews, Germans, Latinos, Greek, African Americans, Chinese, and others, New York promised hope for a new and better life in a free society. Many came to escape persecution. Most traded old problems for new ones. All left their imprint on the fabric of New York culture and society. For many of the immigrants, their first glimpse of this new world was the Statue of Liberty, standing boldly in New York Harbor, a welcome symbol of freedom. Sculpted by Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi, the statue was a gift from the people of France to those of the United States in honor of their enduring friendship. Bartholdi had several ideas for the monument he was commissioned to design, but it wasn't until he sailed into New York Harbor that the ultimate vision came to him. He called it a mighty woman with a torch lighting the way to freedom. She was a generous gift and a noble vision, but public apathy almost prevented her arrival. A pedestal for the statue was to be built from private donations in the U.S., but the money barely trickled in. It wasn't until newspaper publisher Joseph Pulitzer launched a national fundraising campaign that money poured in from all parts of the country, and the pedestal was finally built. On October 28, 1886, the Statue of Liberty, Enlightening the World, was dedicated by President Grover Cleveland. 100 years later, to commemorate her centennial, the statue was restored and rededicated by the grateful people of the United States. Today, most visitors reach the city via one of its 3 major airports. But New York remains a very busy port, second in the world only to Rotterdam, the Netherlands. Every 28 minutes, on the average, an ocean-going vessel enters or leaves the port with cargo, passengers, or both. Manhattan is bordered on the west side by the Hudson River and on the east by the East River. The great avenues traverse the city from north to south, and for the most part are numbered consecutively. Cross streets are usually numbered consecutively too, with the lower numbers being downtown. Unofficially, the city is divided into neighborhoods and districts. New York's climate is best described as temperate. Winter lows average in the 30s, summer highs in the 80s. With a generally pleasant climate and the surprising compactness of Manhattan Island, New York is best seen on foot. But when the weather just won't cooperate, pedestrians can take to a transportation system that includes almost 12,000 taxis, 1,000 miles of bus routes, and more than 200 miles of subway lines. Traffic in New York is legendary, but what you might not realize is that this congestion has been around as long as the automobile. The New Yorker's nightmare is gridlock, a situation that occurs when traffic congestion blocks travel in all directions at an intersection. It's merely another fact of life to be reckoned with in this metropolis. As a commercial and financial center, New York is second to none. American and foreign banks are highly visible on Park, Madison and Fifth Avenues, and other large thoroughfares. But the street most associated with high finance is Wall Street. At one end of the street, dwarfed by the surrounding buildings, is Trinity Church, once the tallest building in New York. An Episcopal church dating back to 1697, its quiet cemetery is an island of serenity amid the hustle and bustle of the financial district. Robert Fulton, inventor of the steamboat, and Treasury Secretary Alexander Hamilton are among the notables buried here. One of the most popular attractions in New York is the New York Stock Exchange. At the front entrance, a tree commemorates the sycamore at the corner of Wall and William Streets, where 24 brokers met in 1792 to create the forerunner of the New York Stock Exchange. Today, more than 1,000 members trade shares in a daily frenzy far removed from the gentlemanly handshakes or taps on the shoulder that sealed a bargain 200 years ago. All along 7th Avenue from the upper 20s to 40th Street is the area known as the Garment District. Sometimes referred to simply as 7th Avenue, this is the heart and soul of the American fashion industry. Paris Blues is a clothing line manufacturer in the Garment District. This representative explains why.
New York is definitely the fashion capital. It has an international flavor with not only tourism, but people are able to travel there to all the different fashion capitals of the world. So the fashion influences come from Europe or the Orient or so many different places to New York first because of its manufacturing and credibility in the marketplace. And there is a lot of production directly in the fashion area in New York. A lot of production happens right in that area. And so when you're walking up and down 7th Avenue, you see people rolling racks of clothes back and forth, and salesmen's sample lines going in and out of all the different buildings. But they're actually producing, and they actually ship out of that area as well. And once a month, all the buyers from all over the country come into New York and see all the different manufacturers. If you're not there, it's really like not considered a serious company to do business with.
Many immigrants first made their way in the New World as seamstresses and tailors. Some went on to start their own companies and make their fortunes in a garment industry affectionately known as the rag trade. Just a few blocks away on 47th Street, messengers deliver even more precious goods. Here, in small briefcases or even in their coat pockets, diamond merchants carry their wares, sometimes making exchanges right on the street. About 80% of the country's wholesale diamond trade is conducted within this block. New York is a shopper's paradise. More than 30 department stores, including the famed Macy's, carry an assortment of items from all over the world. First opened in 1858 in a space a mere 20 feet wide, Macy's today covers more than 30 acres. Beneath its large roof are a post office, a flower market, a pet shop, a butcher, baker, pharmacy, 3 beauty salons, 5 restaurants, and its own police force. Shoppers can roam from the cellar with its arcade of exotic foods